Hey guys, welcome to Foresight TV. I've got on two of my favorite clowns, friends, with us today. And we are, I don't even know, well, we sort of know what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a couple of things. We are going to talk about what COVID-19 has done to the conference world with Michael Owens. We're going to talk with Jack York a little bit about what impact it's had on IN2L, and more importantly, he is raising money for a great cause. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk a little bit just about kind of how we see collectively, particularly you guys see the state of senior living and what you think the future is. I'm particularly interested in knowing what you see as being the upside of all of this. So, Jack.
Riveting, man. This is going to be riveting. I can, it's like, the clicks, the hits, they're just exploding, Steve.
Yeah, I think we're going to blow up LinkedIn. This is definitely.
Yeah, make sure your technology keeps up, man.
That's right. Oh, and we'd love to hear comments. If you've got questions or embarrassing things you want to say to Jack or Michael, please feel free to type those in the comments. So that would be cool.
Oh, so I can't see the comments here, so you got to feed those over, Steve. Make sure you share all the wonderful comments about my hair and Jack's hair as well.
You bet. They should be on your right. They should be on your right side if you click on that little button up there that says comments.
Well, I think it could mean that no one's watching, which
no, because we're in StreamYard. We're not on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So Jack, so let's talk about let's talk just for a couple minutes about technology, COVID, and what you see the future is for senior living, good and bad.
Wow, you're throwing serious stuff at me. I gotta regroup. I gotta regroup here. Yeah. No, it's always in all sincerity, for those of you who don't know what we do, for 21 years we've been providing engagement technology going into senior living communities, and it honestly has been the most, through all the pain of COVID, it's probably been the most rewarding 6 months for the company, just to how many thousands of people we've been able to keep connected. So I love, again, you feel it's a little awkward to talk about positive things that have come from it, but there are a lot that have come from it. But I think the whole issue of, you and I have talked about this before, Steve, that the whole issue of isolation was about, sixth on somebody's dance card, except for pretty innovative providers. But it's moved way up the food chain of families, demanding it. It's not a luxury anymore. So it's been cool for us as a company, business-wise. It's been rewarding for us to see what's happened. And I think it's been a good sea change of just elevating the implementation of technology that people would sit on for months, if not years, and then they're working a hell of a lot faster.
Yeah. So it's been pretty good.
I like this Steve needs a haircut comment.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, John Gonzalez. I like Pam's comments a lot better, to tell you the truth.
Because Michael's got cool hip hair, and I've got good old man hair. Yeah, you don't got squat there, Moran. Let's just call it spade a spade.
You know what? I have the best haircut in the world, because you know what? God made a few perfect heads, and the rest of you put hair on. So I don't know what that says about you. So
first time you've used
that on a T-shirt somewhere.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, Jack, be quiet for a minute. Jack, be quiet for a minute. Michael, you have had kind of a different experience, right, in COVID. So you run the best, and my personal opinion, but not just mine, other people's. You run the best conference in all of senior living, and
well, I appreciate that. It's been a great year to be a live event producer. That's all I can say. We're having a killer year. It's just the phones are ringing off the hook. It's been great. And it's been a tough year. But like everybody, we've pivoted and trying to figure things out. We're navigating the virtual world. And it's not perfect, but the reality is that it's getting better, and we're learning how to, improve on certain things and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. As you know, we're doing SLIF, Senior Living Innovation Forum, almost live at the end of this month. But we're breaking up the content and the connections into different pieces because people just don't want to sit online for 6-7 hours in one day and try to, make those connections. So it's been a learning curve. But I think at the end of the day, when we do get back to live events, that we will now have a new opportunity to keep people connected. And even just like you're doing now, Steve, with this, everybody's comfortable now getting onto virtual platforms. So it makes it makes it a lot easier to organize something on the fly and also see some old friends face to face instead of having to get on a plane. So there's upsides and there's downsides.
Well, one of the things I want to say about your conference, Michael, that I think is really cool is that normally attendance at your conference is restricted to people in the C-suite, right? And today you're making this available to everybody. And tell me what the cost is.
It's free. It's free for senior housing professionals. Of course, we have sponsors that are supporting it. And
I didn't know it was free. Well, I was going to talk to our marketing folks that it became free for us.
Free for senior housing providers. So typically SLIF is a by invitation only event, intimate, retreat that lasts 3 days that we take, from coast to coast each year. And but for this year, we said, okay, well, if we can't bring everyone together in person, we're doing virtually. We're limited by the amount of rooms and the venues that we choose to bring, a smaller group together. But this year we're saying open up to everyone. So of course the C-suite, we want them to participate, but we're encouraging, all the way down to at the facility level to expose, the industry to new ideas. And that's kind of the central what we've always been trying to promote is to bring some people from outside the industry. So for this one coming up, we have the CEO of Taco Bell giving a talk about, taking a crisis and rolling with it. And prior to CEO of Taco Bell, he was the CEO of TaylorMade golf clubs and the CEO of Adidas, and he turned those companies around. So he doesn't have any background with food service, but went in there to kind of bring some new ideas. And that's what really the mission of SLIF is to really kind of bring, some new ideas and thoughts into the mix. You can sign up at seniorlivinginnovationforum.com.
Yeah, and we'll drop some links into the post on LinkedIn and on our YouTube page right after this is over, so to make it easy for you to access those. So Jack, you're doing we're actually going to sort of. Hey, Katie, how are you? I'm glad you joined us. Hey, Jack, you're doing something pretty cool that has nothing to do with senior living exactly in a week or so. You want to talk to a fundraising thing?
Yeah, on Thursday, October 22nd, and it sounds like you'll be putting links up later, but it's a long story that I'll make very brief. Is that I was speaking at the Global Aging conference, which is a subsidiary of Leading Age, at their conference in Australia about 5 years ago, on a panel about innovation, and I'm extremely proud of IN2L and the work we've done, and I was happy to present. And I present after this guy who looks like Eddie Murphy in Coming to America. That he's just out there, comes out there the full regalia from Cameroon, and he just told this story of putting his life on the line to start this organization called CDVTA that supports women and the elderly in Cameroon. And it's like, it really was buzzkill for my presentation to have to follow Martin Luther King, but so we sent the guy $500, just for the heck of it, not thinking of it as anything come out of it. And he, about 6 weeks later, he sends me all these links and pictures and video clips of that. With the $500, he set up the Jack York Northwest Cameroonian Elderly Women Goat Fund. And so we just started this relationship, and we brought him to the U.S. I probably brought him to probably 100 different communities. He's passionate. He does everything with the money he accounts for, and whether it's water projects, whether it's schools for girls, all kinds of stuff. And so this is the first year we can't bring him here. So it's like, what would be creative to do to honor him and to keep the momentum going. And we partnered with Melissa Banco at Banco Design, who, like I am, we're a great fan of your work, Michael, and Slip, and love being a part of it for many, many years. And so we whimsically put together the idea for a telethon, almost like the old Jerry Lewis MS telethons with and I'm gonna be wearing a red jacket.
You gotta wear them. I was gonna say you better be wearing a red jacket.
That's part of our reputation. But it's gonna be a mix. It's gonna be 2.5 hours of really cool content about fun, poignant things going on in Cameroon, along with off the wall things like goat yoga and just and all kinds of stuff that is really we're all kind of putting together. But it's just it's a combination of doing good work for a good man and a good organization, and just blowing some steam off at the same time. And so everything is we think it's going to be really creative and different, and we hope people tune in. And
so
the goal is to raise 50 grand, and if we do raise 50 grand, Melissa and I are both going to get tattoos of goats. Now that's a commitment. That is a commitment.
Are you real? All right.
Yeah.
We definitely got to make sure. I'm going to go out and make sure that you raise that money, because I definitely want.
We are. Yeah, we've got the goat. We've got they got the goat guy picked out. So it's or the tattoo guy. Not the goat
I have a question though, Jack. Where exactly on your body is this tattoo?
That was the next question.
Well, it's going to be
on your neck.
Well, it's going to be the first annual event, so I was kind of thinking maybe you put like a hoof for now, and then you grow it next year. But I'm kind of thinking ankle.
That's not a goat.
I'm thinking ankle sounds kind of.
I'm thinking tramp stamp. If you know that.
Yeah.
Google that one.
Hey, if you, Michael, if you donate 15 grand, you can tell me where it goes.
Can I give the tattoo if I donate 50 grand?
No, you can tell me where to. Oh, yeah, sure. Well, that could be part of a live thing.
Listen, this maybe in other years I could have some, but not as an event producer.
That's why I threw the offer out there.
Unfortunately,
that's why I thought it was a safe offer.
Yeah, because I can see it right across Jack's forehead. So that would be pretty interesting. So
I do apologize for saying hoof. You did call me out on that, Michael.
Well, I'm curious. What are you using? Like, it's going to be on YouTube. Where can people watch it?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a YouTube live. The Banco team's doing the logistics work for it. And next week we're going to be going into kind of heavy promotion mode about it. But it's cool. We've got 10 sponsors. We've got a whole lot of. That's how we raise money by selling goats to build a senior center in my mother's name. I went over there to watch a senior center christened, the Dorothy York Senior Center. There she is right there, There's Dorothy. You see Dorothy?
You can't quite see that, Jack. You got to turn the camera.
Windows.
But it's a lot of people have got behind him, and it's again, and I won't get, you don't want to get political, but it's just, I think we're so caught up in everything that's negative and what's bad, and then you go to Cameroon, where it's a 50-50 shot that your water is going to come when you turn it, and the people are freaking 1,000 times happier than we are. So it's like, it's not this paternalistic, let's go help these people in Cameroon. It's like, let's help them financially, and let's learn from them how to smile more. So
I love that. I love that.
That's what it's all about.
Well, and that's a good
to take kids to Mexico during spring break, and to do building projects for my church youth group. And always their biggest revelation was we'd see people living in just abject poverty in houses where they'd never own a key, or they'd never have a front door, just a piece of cloth. You never had running water, and they were so much happier than everybody that they knew. So just a really, really powerful thing. I think that's such a powerful.
It's two things. It's happy and grateful, incredibly grateful for just nominal amounts of support. And it's like, it's just, it's hard to find those two things a lot these days.
Yeah. So I met Frank.
Except on this call, I feel nothing but joy and gratefulness. So.
Well, no, I remember meeting Francis with you in New Orleans at Leading Age a few years ago, him and his wife, and I can totally see that just from the few, 10, 15-minute chat that I had with him about how positive he was and told me the story and the work that he's doing. So I think that's awesome that you're doing that. And on the topic of having fun and not taking ourselves too seriously, I've got Steve Moran and Jack York to join us at a segment for Sliff Almost Live, where we're going to talk about the future of senior housing while we taste super hot sauces. So that should be a little bit of fun.
I'm cautiously nervous.
Well, you gave me your mailing address. They're coming.
So
back out now.
Yeah.
So I've watched this done before, and I'm even more nervous than you, Jack. So, but it might even be more fun than Foresight TV. I'm not quite sure yet. So I want to hit a couple of things in the comments here. We've actually got quite a few. So first off, Jack, this is for you, and it probably won't make sense, and I probably shouldn't do this on live TV, but there's a young man by the name of JP Helgruns. He's going to send you a LinkedIn invite, and he needs to talk to you. I recommended that he connect with you. John Gonzalez.
Hey, my son is named JP. So whoever the hell JP is, you send a link and we'll start yakking.
Yeah. So, and somebody wants to clone you, Jack. I kind of am not so sure about that. I think one of you is maybe even too much. So I'm not quite sure. So,
yeah, that's a. Thank you. What maybe? Well, there's a lot of bad clone movies, so that I don't know.
Yeah. So, Michael, I want to get serious here for a little bit for just a minute. I know that over the last few months, as you're having to retool your conference, you've been having lots of conversations with folks in both the vendor community and senior living operators who would normally be attending. What do you hear? I guess first, how are people surviving? Are they thriving? What's sort of the good and the bad that you're hearing?
Well, obviously everything's changing so much over from the pandemic first hit to now. Every company has their own challenges. Some, of course, in the technology space, we know have done really well. Others in certain categories are struggling. But the one thing I'd say, I think literally in the past month, I see a lot more positivity. It seems like things are getting back on track. People are starting to talk about investing on the operator side of things. That they're looking to get out of the triage mode, and they're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, which of course is great. But it's been a lot of being thrown into things, and I think we've all heard the terms that things have been advanced and been accelerated 5, maybe 10 years for certain organizations. It's been a challenge, but I also think that's a great opportunity, and a lot of good is going to come out of that. Specifically for certain vendor companies now, that for a lot of operators that were sitting on the side and not doing certain things are now realizing, oh my God, we need to catch up. So for me as a content producer and someone that brings people together to kind of think about the future, the future is here now, and there's just like a fire hose being, blasted at everybody trying to figure out like, what should I be focused on? And so, for us, I'm excited about it. The past few months have been challenging trying to figure out how to navigate and bring people together. But, the reality is live events probably won't be really viable again until the halfway point of next year. And, and live events are, what does that mean? For us, we're fortunate because the events we do are smaller, right? And more, not in a large expo hall. The bigger shows are going to have even a tougher time. So, some people are sitting out saying, we don't want to participate in virtual events or do this. We're going to wait for the live events to come back. But you're also now not being, you're missing out opportunities to be part of the conversation. So when things do come back, you're top of mind. So it's those conversations that we've been kind of having with a lot of our, companies that are out there.
Yeah, I think that, we're still all trying to figure it out. As you, both of you guys know, but some watching may not. I, from time to time, when I go to conferences, I carry this little clicker along just to keep track of how many conversations I have. And at most, say, 2.5-day conferences, I'll end up with about 100 to 150 people that I've had. Sometimes they're in depth, sometimes they're really small. So I spent quite a bit of time at the NIC conference earlier this week looking to connect with people. And if I started to push the button, but the list was so small, I didn't need to. I think I ended up with about 16 people I connected with which on one hand, compared to that 100 or 150 seems really bad. But the flip to that is I've actually set up 4 or 5 conversations with people I didn't really know. Some of them were people I'd met before. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to have some really nice in-depth conversations. And so it's very different. And I'm actually thinking maybe a mix would be better, will be better.
Well, I'll add to that. So what we find is that, if we're talking about operators coming, so our model, of course, as you know, it's to bring the industry together, to share big ideas. But what drives our business, of course, is making those connections with our vendor partners like IN2L. In a live setting, people are a bit more open to having conversations, even if they're not looking for the solutions that, say, a company like IN2L has. But now in a virtual setting, that you can't make that happen. It's really only coming together. People only want to, talk to people for solutions that they're really looking for. So it's tough to have those serendipitous moments or those connections that normally only happen because you're there in a place. So it makes it more focused. So, it really kind of sifting through, you have to find the right people to bring together. Also, the timing is different too. In a live setting at our events, we would try to organize these 30-minute meetings. That's a little too long for virtual. Some of these like 5-10-minute meetings are good. And then, you decide from that if you want to have a follow-up that's a bit more lengthy. So it's just,
from our standpoint, we've been a part of multiple virtual trade shows, and for the most part, they have been abysmal in terms of number of people that come in. So it really, it really does. And, we have a great marketing team to make these decisions, not me, but there is going to be a lot of rethinking of budgets next year.
Of course.
So I just think that the more, the speaking pieces, the interaction with a handful of people, that's going phenomenal. I'm astounded at the quality of conversations you can have in Zoom calls with people you've never met before. That we're all burned out of it from a big picture standpoint, but it's almost like you go on a conference call, and it feels so 2019, to be on a phone conference call compared to looking at people interacting. So it just a lot of rethinking. And what we see from the providers is some of them, do you say gnawing your teeth? Whatever is it when you're some are just paralyzed almost, and other people like, this is a really cool opportunity to accelerate our home and community-based services, to accelerate different tools, to bring in technology. And I just think it's fascinating to see the range of how the providers are responding to it, because there is incredible opportunities out there all over the place.
There is, look, there's no doubt there's what they call Zoom fatigue, right? People are just tired of going on. My day is basically filled with, video call after video call. And I love it because like Jack, you and I can connect, or Steve, and we get to see each other. We never did that before. We always were on the phone.
Right.
You have to find that balance. And I do think that, as you just stated, a lot of companies had signed up, even for our events, signed up for events that were intended to be live, that were pivoted to virtual because of, things that were out of our control. And companies went along for the ride, but they're going to be a lot of reevaluating through the fall, determining whether they're going to participate in those virtual types of venues come the spring and into the
and from our standpoint too, it all depends where you are from a vendor standpoint. Where are you on the business cycle? We have a phenomenal footprint of 3,500 communities, so we want to do things that stay in touch with them. But in terms of what are the new opportunities, it comes from the SLIP conferences or where that stuff really happens.
So I mean, I guess I have a question for you then. So like, what's your objectives now? I mean, if you're looking to the new year, and we're staying in this type of virtual world, is it more the thought leadership opportunity?
Well, really, to have no one in our company's management really know what I do each day. That's my primary goal, and I've been successful this year at it, and I'm going to try to keep that going next year. But no, I think it's getting creative. To be honest, a lot of what we've been trying to do is be supportive of our customers now, not trying to sell to them. It's just a bad mojo to be having your COVID sale. So we've been doing so much work in our product side to make the product stuff we're doing for it's releasing next year is just phenomenal. But I think it's really just being very specific about where, where do you wind up with the relationships? And if the trade show virtual thing, it's just going to change. And so you just be open to it. And again, we have great relationships with leading aides, great relationships with all kinds of folks that we're all just trying to figure out what's the right. It isn't black and white. It's just trying to all of us change collaboratively and figure out the best way to keep growing.
Yeah. And Steve,
I would just say that we've done a couple of virtual events, right? And we've learned some really interesting things. I'll tell you that the three big things that we've learned. The first is that, and we had no idea, but when we did our first event, we had just under 1,000 registrations. And the thing that blew us away was the amount of conversation that was going on via chat during the presentation. And it was relevant, and it made it a richer experience. It resulted in new friends. It resulted in additional content for us. But when Maddie Dykewald spoke, I think I had 10 pages of commentary that was it was really hopeful. The second thing that we have found is that we do have sponsorships, and that we the primary thing we've done is created speaking spots for our sponsors, and it's been huge for them because, with a couple of exceptions, they've been very educational. So we're finding that we're not losing people logging in and online when that's happening, and it's driving business for them. And so that's been really, really good. The third thing I saw, and this is the one that really surprised me and frankly was quite disappointing, was we had a number of companies that essentially boycotted what we were doing in favor of the pandemic. Got to stay all hands on. And while I get that you've got to be focused on operations, and it's the most important thing, you've still got to be feeding your people. And so if it's all crisis all the time and never take a break, I think it really hurts teams and really hurts the organization. So
yeah, I know. It's like, I mean, I've gotten some feedback. It's inappropriate to do a fundraiser for Cameroon because there's so much stuff in the U.S. It's like, whatever you do, somebody's going to shoot at it. I think the one thing if I was running an association, especially the ACA and leading aides, the big associations, I think they need to push their members to be a part of the virtual booths, to really get out there and make sure that I think that synergy, it can work if they do it, but people we're all busy. At a conference, it's easy to do it, but I think it's got to be very intentional.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw in there. Virtual booths don't work. I mean, nobody wants to go through a virtual expo hall and click on things. I mean, all it is basically, might as well just go to your website. You're going to get more information there than you will from a little booth that has a snippet of text. Now, we're running our event. We do have virtual booths to showcase the sponsors, but I think it's managing those expectations leading in, is that, a lot of people are still going into the virtual event thinking it's going to be similar to what happened offline. And it's no different from a retailer opening up an online store. You can't imagine it's going to be the same shopping experience for people that go on to an e-commerce site. So, and I see the comment, and I appreciate what Michael Miller's saying there. I guess he participated in an obviously industry conference, and everybody's testing things out. But it really does come down to it. It's the smaller group Zoom meetings. And that's what we're organizing. That's what we see the opportunity is to do more curated, groups for only about 8 people. Because once you get beyond that, it gets also unmanageable. So you bring the right audience together to problem solve around a topic, and that's where I think there's real opportunity to do things virtually. And you can do the big tentpole virtual events to promote big ideas and bring people together. But you have to accept the fact that a lot of people can't log on in the middle of the day and sit in front of their computer screens. There are going to be people walking around the office going like, what are you doing, watching TV? So, people digest it on demand, which is totally fine. It's no different from what we do with...
Though that is one of the benefits to Zoom call or any of these calls is that, if this was a phone call last year, I would have had 10 emails done by now. I'd be kind of picking up on half of what you say. It's kind of hard to be, you have to stay focused to a certain extent when you're all talking to each other.
No, I'm actually right now at the same time.
I know my wife tried to call me while I'm on this, and she's in the house, so I don't know why she's trying to be, but I had to text her that I was on this important business Zoom meeting. So, a couple of things. One of the things I participated in several of the Hive discussions for Argentum, And one of the things that was really fascinating was we did a whole bunch of, they were designed to be conversational, but there'd be 30 people or 40 or 50 people on, but nobody would want to talk. And the three of us, we do a lot of this stuff. So it's sort of, whether it's 3 people or, 300, it's sort of okay. But I think, Michael, you really hit it on the head when you talked about groups of 8 or 6, 8, 10 people. People are much more comfortable having those conversations. So the other thing that I found really interesting is on our agenda at the end of the first day, I realized I was still logged in hours after it was over, and there were like 200 other people who were still logged in. So I think a lot of people log in and then go off and aren't really paying attention. So it's really hard to know what the level of engagement is.
Yeah, and that's the vendors. So that's what they're directed to do. We do that too. It's just, of course, log in and also keep a separate window open so you can check if anybody's in your booth while you're watching the content.
Yeah.
So it's tough to get a read on the number. And, it's all, again, it's new to everybody. And everybody, of course, in the fall right now, it's conference season. So, everyone's trying out different platforms. And then you go into different platforms. It doesn't work on a certain browser. There's technical issues. So it goes back to things like Zoom that most people now are comfortable with. Like the reliability is an important factor of it too.
You bet. Yeah. Well, I will say, and I felt so badly for him. I tried to watch the opening keynote for Aka NCAL yesterday. And when they restarted it the third time, I gave up and said, well, I'll just come back and watch it when it's posted afterwards. So somebody asked a question. I think this is really good, and we're going to actually close with. I would like to have both of your responses, and then I'll wrap it up with my thoughts. But this is a great question. What's the secret to exceptional breakout groups via video teleconferencing? Anyone tried including expert facilities? Jack, let's start with you.
Yeah, and I think I'll piggyback on what Michael said. I think that you want the group to be small enough that everybody feels motivated to interact. And I just think that I've been a part of a lot of large group things in this virtual world that you know that people are not paying attention and they're not being this and that. So I just think what you're talking about, Michael, is to really be intentional about small groups with at least, with a healthy mix of content and relevant. I mean, what I like about your conference is that you're only talking to people who have expressed an interest to talk to you and vice versa. So there's some commonality to start the growth. But I just think smaller is better in anything that we've seen.
And it's also, I think that we're all tired of, if you go to a conference and it's, the way that things are presented with a certain sponsor, right? Like the need to show commercials and do all that. I think people just want to come together and just have conversations. So if they want to learn about technology, they want to learn more about the people behind the company just as much as about the solutions. So I think that's where we've found some success. We're running what we call mastermind sessions. And for our company, of course, we produce Slift, but we're in a number of different verticals. So I'll just use an example. Just yesterday, I facilitated what we're calling a mastermind session for our retail group. And we had the heads of store design and construction from Sephora, IKEA, a lot of big brands all come together. But what we did was we polled them before to understand what their challenges are, and we curated the group. And it's just like a live event or a party. I was using an example. A party is only good on the people that actually show up, right? If you show up and it's a bunch of people that aren't interesting or aren't willing to contribute or have fun, then it's not going to be a fun party. Same thing goes for a conference or even if you're curating something like that. So you got to have the right people, and you have to really kind of understand, have a common theme and know more about each person so the facilitator can make it meaningful and keep the conversation moving along.
Yeah. So the last thing I would say, and this is we're a bit over time here, so we're going to wrap up. I want to, but before I say thank you, I participated in several of the hives, and one of the things that I saw was that it appeared that there were 2 or 3 that I think in all 3 of the ones that I didn't moderate. That the moderators really thought the conversation would just flow, and that they did not have, and so they keep almost begging for conversation. So when I did mine, I spent quite a bit of time. So I made actually a list. It was only a 40-minute session, but I made a list of 10 questions I could ask. Plus, had a lot of things that I knew I could riff on for that particular conversation. But what I ended up doing was that there were a number of people I knew in the group, and so I just called on them because I knew that I could, if I called on them, they would respond. So Jack Cumming, who commented a couple of times and was watching, he was in the group talk. And so it was just, I think, really preparing. If you're going to moderate something like that, don't just assume everybody's going to talk. Figure out the open-ended questions, the ones that are a little bit more provocative, and then have stuff to talk about if there's dead air, because it's really terrible if you go, anybody have anything else to say? So I didn't. I will tell you, I didn't do that with this particular event because I knew that the problem would be running out of time before conversation. I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds, and then we're going to call it quits. Michael?
Well, I agree with you on that. And, you know, it's always a challenge. And a good facilitator is not everybody's cut out for that. So sometimes, and even we're guilty of it sometimes, we give the opportunity to some sponsors and we have to make sure we hold their hands and really understand how to make it a productive session. Yeah. But, you know, there's only so much we can do. So, you know, we can do that. But then if the person gets in there and then they also kind of start going into the sales territory too, we didn't hit on that. You know, then the conversation isn't really that productive.
Yeah. Jack, last words?
Yeah, no, just real. I mean, I would say whether you're a provider or a vendor or whoever else, take risks right now. This is the time to take risks. No, you don't. Yeah. It's all going to be different, and you gotta try it. So, and I do want to do a big shout out to Jack Cumming. Is there anybody better than Jack Cumming out there, Steve? Yeah, gotta love the guy.
He's my number one hero. We are so blessed to have him a part of our team. He teaches me so much every week.
One last thing, Steve. I think I may have a new nickname. Is everyone seeing you, Steve, on the left, Michael in the middle, and me on the right, or is it different?
You know, I think everybody sees that.
Because look at the bottom. My new nickname. I'm Slipjack.
Slipjack. I love it.
Hey, I love it. So Katie, I want to be promoted as Slipjack.
Well, you know, and the funny thing is too, you bring this up, is that actually happens to be an issue, Jack. Is that people don't know who you are? They just know you as Jack. If you put
I'm Slipjack. Yeah,
that's right.
For $29.95, you can get 30 Slipjacks sent to your house.
I'm going to do one final commercial. I'm actually doing speaking at a couple of little conferences. There's a free 2-day sales and marketing conference. For the first time it's ever been done virtually. I think I'm doing the last closeout. I'm going to talk about the 5 or 6 things that the 5 or 6 ways COVID is actually making senior living better. It's going to be about positivity and where we go from here that make the world a better place. Michael, Jack, thank you so much. You guys are changing the world, and that is the best thing in the world.
SeniorLivingInnovationForum.com is where you can sign up for Sliff Almost Live and see me, Steve, and Jack sit down for a conversation while tasting extremely hot sauces. So
I have a lot more to say, but the rules that we've agreed to with the debate committee are not allowing me to do so. So I will have.
And we're gonna have plastic plexiglass between us during that. Okay.
That's right.
I'm not sitting too close to Sliff Jack.
I wouldn't either. Me neither. I'm glad you're between him and me.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
One more plug for his telethon. Where can they go?
It's support CDBTA. Steve will have the stuff to link on. It's support CDBTA is the link you can go to, and it's got it on there.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, guys. Right. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining me today.
All right.
Thank you, Steve.
We will be back next week with another new couple of great guests. So come in, join us. Thanks.